can run, but you can't hide from the radio detective. Jerry Pearce, private investigator, president of the Pearce Corporation, and lifetime member of the law enforcement community, is the radio detective. Catching bad guys on the run.
I'm Jerry Pearce, the radio detective. Welcome to the show tonight. This is Squad Room Night here on the Radio Detective Show, and what that basically means is it's an open line night. Every Friday, we set that aside to talk about a number of things. I'll throw out a couple things here in a moment, and then it's up to you. If you, no matter what you want to talk about, we'll open the lines up here for you. If you've never called a talk show before, this is a good place to learn, because I'll walk you through it. If you're a little nervous about it, don't be nervous. Everybody here is nervous all the time, so you're not going to be alone. The super producer, Jason Cunning's at the board tonight, pushing out the wattage to make this whole thing work, and our own Alik is answering the telephone. She's so excited out there about the next call, and would you wake her up, Jason? Tell her we're on the air, please. Well, let me just mention kind of a bad deal going into the program tonight up in Modesto. Two Modesto PD guys were shot, critically injured. They were responding to a 211. Jewelry store 211, that's an attempted robbery of a jewelry store. One of the suspects was shot and killed in the deal. And the place they were going to hit is Edwards Jewelers at McHenry Shopping Center. And they went down after an employee there noticed these four guys acting furtively or suspiciously, and they activated the silent alarm. And the shots were fired when the officers arrived at the scene. Three of the suspects involved in that deal and got away in a car. But there's been an unconfirmed report, according to the news people covering this, that there's three people had been found. However, there's a Sacramento TV station reporting that the trio is holed up in a Livingston home. Now, we've asked some people to get to the bottom of it. If you're in Modesto listening to the show, or if you're in law enforcement up there and there's any update that you can give us, we'd appreciate a call right down here, and we'll get that out on the air. If there's anything you need up there in the way of information you want out on the air for people to be on the lookout for, we'd be happy to broadcast that for you. Squad Room Night here on the Radio Detective is simply a night where you can talk about whatever's on your mind. We open up the lines here, and we get a lot of first-time callers on this night, and it's a place we just get together and have one big BS session, frankly. There don't have to be anything particular. I would mention that we talk about cops a lot on this show, and you know how I feel about that. But I should mention that every time I find one of these little tidbits, it makes me wonder what all the work that law enforcement puts into public relations in the department, trying to make them a better part of the community and like them and so forth. Well, down in Clearwater, Florida, a pregnant mother of two went to jail for ignoring notices from the public library for overdue books. Her name was Beverly Goldman, 24 years old. She's 7 months pregnant, was arrested on charges of failing to appear in court on 7 counts of failing to return overdue library materials. Now, she says she didn't get the notice. She moved twice, in fact. They sent detectives out there, busted her. They let her send her 5-year-old son and her 6-year-old daughter off to school before putting her in jail. And 2 books were overdue, and the books were valued at $100 and some. But she takes the position that she really didn't know anything about it, forgot about them, but they threw her in jail for that. Now, there's a lot of ways to handle that, I think. If I was the administrator of that department, I'd handle it a lot different than that. But that's just stupid, is what that is. And that is not, my friends, good law enforcement. Before we get back and talk about some other things, we've got Rick in Springville holding here to talk to us. Rick, welcome to the show tonight.
Good evening.
How are you? Good, sir.
Good. I just wanted to ask about, I hold a California concealed weapons permit, and I was going to be doing some traveling in an RV, and I was wondering if other states acknowledge the California concealed weapons permit, or if not, how do you go about advising them, or do you?
Well, yeah, they don't, as a rule. Honor them. Let me get tuned up here a little bit, Rick. They don't honor them in any other state. Have you got your radio on, Rick?
Yeah, I just turned it off.
Okay. They don't honor them in other states unless there's an agreement I don't know of any right now, but the best way to do that, if you know what state you're going to go through, is just put a call down to any law enforcement agency anywhere in that state, just to be on the safe side, and ask them what the rule is for transporting through their state, and if they honor a California CCW. But you see, even some police officers can't carry concealed weapons outside of California in some states. So it's not anything they're picking on citizens about. Some of these states don't do it. But that's what I would suggest you do is, how long a trip's going to be, Rick?
Oh, I may be gone for a month or two and just travel in quite a few different states.
Yeah.
Staying in some, traveling through some.
Well, there's some. Is it motorhome?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, there's some law about motorhomes and boats, that apply to it being a residence. And so some of these states may have a waiver to have the gun in the motorhome. You might check into that with the state you're going to go through. But what I do is just call ahead of time and ask them. Any good gun dealer, you go to John McCormick's Guns here in Fresno or give him a call.
Okay.
He'll have a book probably there that tells you what states have put policies and which states are there. If not, John will tell you where to call and get that book.
Okay,
and
great.
It's probably also on the Internet.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, get on the Internet and they'll have the policies laid out there. And if that doesn't work, you call the National Rifle Association at their 800 number and they'll refer you to that kind of information.
Okay, because I am a life member with that too.
Well, then you got it made. Just give them a call and ask them try to figure out what state you're going to go through roughly, and they'll tell you where to get the information.
Well, great. Well, sure appreciate it.
Hey, you bet, Rick, and we thank you for calling in from Springville. We're going to take our first break. I'm Jerry Pearce, the Radio Detective, along with Jason, the Super Producer. We'll be right back.
Solve real murders and catch bad guys on the run. Real crime in real time. The Radio Detective.
I'm Jerry Pearce, the Radio Detective, back with you after the break. If you want to be a part of tonight's show, this is Squad Room Night. We'll talk about whatever's on your mind. It's a good night to break you into talk radio. I'm a good guy to do that with. I'll walk you through it if you're a little nervous. Take a sip of that Jim Beam and dial that old phone up here. And we're coming to you from Fresno, the heartbeat of California. You know you're in Fresno if you see these people riding around with gun racks on their riding lawnmowers. You can't miss the place. Let's go over to Al in Fresno. Al, welcome to the show. Al, how are you?
How you doing?
Good, sir. Al, you got to turn your radio down, or
okay,
that delay's going to nail you.
All right, I got it.
Okay, sir.
I'm calling in response to that story you started off with about the lady arrested in Clearwater.
Yeah, for the library books.
Right, I agree. But in defense of law enforcement, there are a lot of procedures that have to be followed before you get to the point of arrest. Like a complaint needs to be filed.
Right.
That complaint goes to the DA's office.
Right.
Then the arrest warrant is issued.
Right.
And then the person is arrested.
Right.
So the police department has the role of just following the complaint. You have the complaint, you go and arrest the person.
Right.
And I could guarantee you, as a peace officer myself, that we have a lot more things to do than to chase down people that keep books.
Well, they
out
sent
of the library.
Al. What they did, they sent out 2 plainclothes detectives.
Right.
To this house over a $100 bill for library books, and apparently why can't they send out a librarian? I mean, anybody ever think about doing that and knock on the door and ask the lady for the books back? I mean, what is this going to court? Let's add this up, Al. If you're in the business, you're on the job, right?
Right.
The cost of the law enforcement angle, first of all, the cost of the courts, the cost of the DA staff preparing the complaint, the cost of the judge to hear the complaint and to sign the warrant. Add that all up. Is that something over $100, do you think?
I totally agree with you, but I'm not disagreeing with your point that it's not worth the price. It's really not cost effective to do it that way.
Right. I mean,
but I'm just saying that law enforcement probably agrees with you, but they are under orders. You're mandated by that arrest warrant to arrest this person if you find them.
Well, go down. So I understand. I mean,
we're not in a position to say, well, I think that's stupid, and I'm not going to do it.
I know you're not. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the policemen are at fault here. I mean, trust me, if they were told to go do it, they're going to follow orders. Right. I'm telling the administrator that said that's stupid. Okay, I mean, that whole thing is dumb. And,
it might be something like that should, you're right, should be handled somewhere else.
if I had two detectives working for me, and I used to have a lot of detectives working for me,
Right.
I would not use two detectives to go out. I mean, it's kind of funny to me, Al, actually, to go out after a library book. I'm sure they got a couple armed robbery cases laying around there they could work on.
Oh, absolutely. But now we're talking about manpower. You never want to send one detective to possibly have to arrest someone.
Yeah, well, that's the other.
You know that because of officer safety. You know that.
No. Back up, Al. Let me take you back. I don't know when you started in the business, but let me just take you on a little trail here, okay? 1963, when I went in the business,
right.
I worked the day shifts and I worked the night shifts alone. If I was going to make an arrest, I made it alone. And there were bad guys just like there are now then. And we didn't have all this backup that they have today. And I disagree with it. It's fine. If we can afford it, if you're going after somebody that's a bad guy, fine. But I know a lot of highway patrolmen that have made a lot of arrests out on that freeway absolutely alone.
Right.
And the whole thing now is this safety of the officer. I mean, they send a SWAT team in for two drunk burglars in a building nowadays. We used to have to take them out alone. Now, that's the difference in the old law enforcement and the new. I'm sure that you guys are far smarter people than I was, or am, and I'm sure you guys know how to run the show much better than I would. But I think a lot of this is overreaction. I don't understand how you put up with wearing the vest, but I know you have to wear it. And I criticize our society for being such that our law enforcement officers have to strap on that stupid vest every day. We didn't know how to spell vest when I was in the business, much less own one. So that's where it's come to. But to go after a 25-year-old, 27-year-old pregnant woman, you need two big old bully detectives to go out there.
Oh, no, well, now you're speculating that we're two bully detectives.
Well, if they're detectives, they're big old fat guys that smoke. And, I mean, trust me. So, I mean, you could have went down to the squad room and got a rookie that just hired on and said, take one of the cars and run out there and book that felonious person, that pregnant gal, and throw her butt in jail. But make sure her kids go to school first.
Well, I would tell you that since 1963 and law enforcement today, it has changed a lot.
Oh, it sure has.
It sure has. No longer are the days that you're going to see one officer go into a potentially situation that could turn bad.
Now wait a minute, Al. Look at Al, you and I are going to have some fun.
You're
going after a gal that stole a library book, for crying out loud. This isn't Al Capone's nut.
You're going to arrest one. You don't know who's going to be there. You don't know who.
Trust me. I mean, if it gets tough, just leave. I mean, it's a library book, Al. Bear with me, will you?
Come on. As a former peace officer, you don't have the option to leave.
Oh, yes, I do. I mean, let me tell you,
I'm not going to get into that.
No, let me tell you. But no, this is interesting because people are listening to you and I.
Well, all I'm saying is that the peace officers in this case did not just happen to be surveilling this lady and wanting to arrest her. There was a procedure that took place.
Let me tell you. I agree with you, Al. Honest to God, I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. But somewhere along the line, are you an administrator? I mean, are you a supervisor? Or are you? Well, I don't want to press you for your department, but if you ever make it to the top, you got to understand, if you're the chief or one of the lieutenants or the captains or whatever, you got to have some common sense about all this.
Right.
This gal stole a life. I mean, she didn't steal it; she just didn't turn it in. I mean, she didn't. In order to have a theft, you got to intentionally intend to permanently deprive somebody of it. She was late on it, so they went after her. The librarian went after her.
You see, now there you're giving benefit of the doubt to her story, and you see what I'm saying?
I do, Al.
You're just giving the benefit of the doubt to her story. I'm back to what my argument is.
Okay.
This is not a call where an administrator from the PD or the sheriff's department, whatever it was, could make a call and say, we're not going to go service these people.
Okay.
They're being called upon by the library to perform a service. There's an arrest warrant.
Well, you know what?
They need to do it.
Okay, my partner and I one day got a call, right, from over at the courts. And the court administrator said, the judge wants you two detectives to come down here and remove this loud drunk from the hallway in the courthouse.
Right.
And we're over the detective bureau, right?
Right.
And we said, we're not going to do it. I mean, we're not going to walk over there and book some drunk in the courthouse. Have the bailiffs do it. But I mean, it's stupid. Some of this stuff is stupid, Al. But let me get back to something you said a minute ago I think is interesting.
Okay.
I answered a call one time, 100 times. In fact, probably 100 times I've turned around and left in different circumstances where you get up to the place and it doesn't smell right to you, doesn't look right to you. Maybe there's too many people around. That's in the days we worked alone.
Right.
You get up there, there's nothing wrong with a police officer turning and walking away, getting back in his car and going back from somewhere and call somebody and say, look, that's a little more than we thought it was up there. So it's just, I mean, even two officers, sometimes you should turn around and walk away. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know what they're teaching new officers now, but a lot of these things is the officer says, well, he can't talk to me that way. They can't block us out here. We've got a job to do, and then it hits the fan. So there's times that you do pull away from it. I've done it. It didn't make me feel less of a man to... Oh, did he leave?
He hung up.
Did he?
Yeah.
He lost his phone?
Yeah.
Okay. We lost Al. Anyway, Al, if you're still listening, I'll finish my argument. It's nothing wrong with turning around and walking away from the scene of something sometime in order to get some more backup. But sending out cops, 2 detectives, to bust somebody that's late on the library book is stupid. I'll say it again, and I'll say it to the day I drop dead. Now, let me just get back to something I want to mention. We got the library book deal. The other thing I can't help but laugh about that, even though Al, disagrees with me. I'm sure he's a good guy, and I'm sure he'll book as many of them late library theft guys and gals as they can. I want to know tonight what you think about something, and sometimes we talk about military on this show. The Air Force went after a Air Force officer for failure to, they say, obey a lawful order when he refused to be immunized against anthrax. Now, there's a guy named this Major Sonny Bates requested a trial by court-martial. This is a 1998 issue that came up under this guy William Cohen, and he's wanting all these soldiers to take these anthrax shots. Now, if you all remember when I had on Dr. Horowitz last summer, and Dr. Horowitz is the author of Emerging Viruses, he laid out chapter and verse his research on some of these shots they're giving people, including the children. And it is a dangerous game they're playing, he said. But what he said is more important. One area is more important than that. He said that these shots for one type of anthrax do not cover the other types of anthrax virus. So I don't understand why they are going to court-martial a guy for simply being weary of an anthrax shot, which apparently has been proven to be of no value. Now, it's disobeying a general order. That's going to be the charge, and technically that's right. But when does common sense enter the picture, again from an administrator in the Army, or the Air Force in this case, that maybe they ought to take a look at this stuff one more time, and they begin to wonder why these other people didn't want to take the shots, and they've court-martialed others so far in this whole thing. But what is your idea on that? Do you think this officer should have taken the shot and just, in his mind, he thought it's a very dangerous thing to do? His military career is going to be ruined now because of the court-martial? Or do you think somebody in the Clinton administration ought to relook at the policy on these anthrax shots? So I'm going to throw that out on the table tonight. I'm going to say that's one thing I want to throw out. I've mentioned the Florida booking thing. I've got an announcement that the PD wants me to make, and I want to get that out of the way while we're in the first part of the show here. I'm still thinking about Al booking them people for stealing them library books. But his point is to be fair to Al, so they don't make all law enforcement upset. Today, he's absolutely correct. If the officers have the duty to go out and do what they're told to do, they have to do it. That's their order, and apparently we're doing that. My problem is that it should never have been something taken that far to begin with. And Al's correct, though. So I made up with Al, didn't I, Jason?
Yes.
Okay, Al's a good guy. Al, I love you. Yeah, come on down anytime. Fresno Police Department sent me a notice here, and the Pig Bowl 2000. Pig Bowl 2000. They're going to have this thing they call the Pig Bowl, and they've got a game day. It's January 22nd, Bulldog Stadium. out at Fresno State University. Kickoff's at 1 p.m. that day. Tickets are adults $7. Children 6 to 12 are $5. And children 5 and under are free. There's a pre-game reception for this Pig Bowl. Wednesday, January 19th. The year 2000 sounds strange, doesn't it, Jason? Fresno Police Officers Association, 994 North Van Ness. That's at Van Ness and Elizabeth, 2 streets south of Olive, 7 to 9 p.m. There's a reception for the Pig Bowl. Tickets can be purchased on game day at Bulldog Stadium or any of the following locations. Seating is general admission. Tickets are available at Fresno and Clovis's Long's drugstores. They're available at the Fresno Police Department Credit Union, Fresno Police Department Association, and the Make-A-Wish office. What is it, Jason?
How do you feel about that name, Jer?
Well, I've gone through that before. I'm a charter pig. I'm a charter pig. I was a pig before. I mean, my partner and I were some of the original pigs in this state. It all started here in California. And back in the 60s, when we were called, that's when they started calling us pigs. So I'm a charter member of the pigs. I don't care about that name too much. I look at it differently than more modern policemen do. We used to frap them with a nightstick. They called us a pig. They went down hard. But anyway, you guys use that name all you want. I'm just trying to help you out with your ball game here. Wish you the best. I wonder who's going to win this. Who the hell's even playing this game? Is it the sheriffs against the PD or what here? Yeah, sheriffs is. Oh no, they're.
That's it.
Okay, there's the sheriffs against the PD. Yeah. Who are you going to root for?
Sheriffs.
The sheriffs?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you're going to go for the sheriffs. I'll go for the PD.
All right.
You want to make a bet? I can't make a bet on the air, but we'll make a bet off the air. I'll go for the PD. You take the sheriffs.
Good.
Give me a spread. No spread. Run a little book here tonight. We're going to, by the way, Pig Bowl took place, last one, Bulldog Stadium, January 16, 1999. And this one is going to be game day, Saturday, January 22, the year 2000. First Pig Bowl of the century. One more real quick one here, Jason, before we go to the break. Today, the Fresno Police Activities League took 80 young athletes to the California PAL Regional Basketball Tournament in Oakland, California. Girls and boys participating range in ages from 8 to 16 years, comprised of 7 different teams divided by gender and age groups. They've been practicing hard to prepare for this competition and involved 36 teams from 9 Northern California cities. The group is the largest the Fresno Police Activities has sent to any out-of-town competition. The Fresno PAL basketball teams have been very successful in recent years, winning a state championship in 98 and 4 second-place trophies in regional competition in 98 and 99. Teams finishing first and second place in each division this weekend will return to Oakland in February for the PAL State Championships, which also include teams from Southern California, PAL's Police Activities League. The Fresno PAL teams, along with police coaches and chaperones, will depart from Fresno Police Department headquarters in the parking lot. And they did that already this morning. They're expected to return between 11 and 11:30 p.m. on Sunday, January 16th. There will be a photo and interview opportunities for news reporters at that time. Any information you need on this, you contact Officer Dave Maynez, Fresno PAL Coordinator. I'm Jerry Pearce, the Radio Detective. We'll be right back.
The only place on the radio law enforcement can call home, the Radio Detective.
I'm Jerry Pearce, the Radio Detective. Welcome back to the show after the break. If you want to be part of tonight, it's Squad Room Night here, which basically means it's open lines. Talk about whatever's on your mind. If it's about police work, fine. Al was talking about that felon down in Florida that took that library book and went after her, and talk about anything you want to talk about tonight. And we're monitoring that Modesto situation. This part of the show is being brought to you by the California Correctional Peace Officers Association. They walk the toughest beat in the state. When are we going to broadcast from the prison, Jason?
Soon.
Coming up?
Yeah, a couple weeks.
We had to change that broadcast time from the Corcoran State Prison due to the change in the station set up here. So we rescheduled it. Jason said it's coming up here in a week or so. We'll keep you posted on that. That should be an interesting broadcast from inside the joint. I'm going to try to convince them to keep Jason in there. Let's go to the callers now, and let's go to Frank in Turlock, California. Frank, welcome to the show, sir. Frank, are you there?
Yeah.
How are you?
Okay.
What can I do for you, bud?
I wanted to briefly clarify. You were talking about that they had them held up in a place in Livingston.
Yeah, well, what's happened here is get a little closer to the phone for me, if you would, there, Frank. We got two reports. We have one that came into the news station here that they had taken into custody, and then we have a Sacramento TV station that reported down here that they thought they had information that these three were held up in a Livingston home someplace. So we don't have clarification on that. The people out in the
Well, I can try and clarify a little bit for you.
Good.
Because I live out by Patterson.
Oh yes.
Between Turlock and Patterson.
Right.
And they've got them held up in a house, or they say either a house or some type of apartment complex.
Oh yeah.
In Patterson.
Oh, in Patterson, not in Livingston.
Right. And they've had the helicopters circling around. But what I was wondering is how come they say that they're not sure if they're there. How come they can't get a hold of them somehow inside? I mean, instead of just standing out in front.
Well, they're gonna. I would imagine they're deploying. I'm not sure what they're going to do up there. I'm just going to take a guess, okay, Frank? If they received an informant tip that these people may be in there, I would imagine they're clearing the area first for safety's sake with special teams of people, and they're probably assembling a group of people to go in and sweep the area for the suspects.
Yes.
In order to do that, that takes a certain amount of time to get everything in order so that the law enforcement can attempt to do it in such a way that no innocent person gets hurt and that no law enforcement officer gets hurt in it. So I would imagine that's what's going on. They just can't run in there. I was just I was joking with Al, an officer that called a little earlier, about the old days, and we used to have to just do that. Because we didn't have a backup. Sometimes we were 75 miles from any backup.
Yeah.
And in those days, you just had to take your chances. But today they do things much differently, and they say it's more professional, this approach, and it saves suspects' lives and officers from getting hurt. In our day, we just shot the hell out of them. We didn't care. We weren't trying to save anybody's life. If they were a felon like these guys that had capped off a couple of police officers, trust me, they were like, well, they don't give a damn about whether they're going to be safe or not. They're going down. But they operate different today. They take a lot more into consideration. I think the main thing they're probably worried about is any innocent people in the area.
Yeah, they've already cleared the whole block radius.
Yeah, there you go.
And but they said that the only thing that they found was they found the car that they used, but they didn't know if there was anybody there.
Well, they're
all the time. It seems like there could have been an easier way, to find out. I know they used to go through the phone company and make contact with the phone.
Right.
To that resident.
Well, they still do that on occasion. It's hard to Monday morning quarterback, the team that's in there. But in fact, if there's any police officers up there or anywhere that you heard Frank's question here, that might have some idea of how this is going down or what's being put into place up there, give us a call here and let us know what your read is on it. My read is that they're just being sure as they go along. They may be taking a little time to do it, but they do have 3 suspects and 3 guys. If they're armed, they already know they're bad guys because they shot some policemen.
Yeah.
So we're not dealing with some little punk or something. We're dealing with some bad guys, and it's going to get hairy before it gets over with if they're held up in any place. So yeah, it's frustrating sometimes, but they probably operating on a tip or some about this car they found or whatever. LAPD has done that a lot. They've gotten to a place and there's been reports of them inside and held up, and they found the car and no suspects. I mean, they went in and out the back maybe. So, but I'm sure that Modesto and the police department and the sheriffs in that county, I'm sure they're on top. They got a helicopter up topside, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they're on. Well, Frank, tonight I'm going to do something a little different. If you hear any more up there and you want to call us back, we'll let you on the line again.
Yeah, okay.
And give us a call if you can find out anything for us. If there's any law enforcement officers in that area that are monitoring that and can bring us up to speed. We do have 2 brother officers down, and that is very important to...
one was a detective.
Right.
was with the force for like 34 years or something.
Right, that's a shame. I mean, but these things happen in law enforcement. I tell everybody that's thinking about going in the business, this is not a walk in the park.
Yeah.
It's serious business, and you got some bad people out here.
Yeah, I know. I used to be an explorer with the Turlock Police
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, Frank, thanks for the call from Turlock, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Let's go to a cell phone call. Jim in Tulare, California. Jim, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Jim.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, Jim. Turn your radio down for me, bud.
Yeah, I just now turned it down.
How you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say my uncle's retired out of the LAPD about 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he originated the first SWAT team in California.
Yeah, that's right. That's where that was the first one down to LAPD, and some of our people went through the first group. You know, your guys or your uncle's people were trained originally at Camp Pendleton Marine Base.
Yeah, but
And that's where they went to learn how to shoot.
yeah, that came after the first original one.
Yeah.
See, the first original one, they used to bring their deer rifles. They didn't have a budget for their other rifles.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I didn't catch your show last night 'cause I had a different truck and there's no radio in it. But you know, California has enough gun laws right now. They don't need any new ones.
Well, that's true.
You know,
Well,
they
Jim, the deal is with California, and what's your read on this? I mean, this isn't about guns, is it? I mean, guns are not the issue. This is about your different rights that you have, that you thought you had, and the guns is just a tool they're using to do this, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, but you got all these liberals saying we don't need guns. When the amendment was made, it was during the Wild West, and they had to have them defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got news for them. It's worse now than it ever was then.
Right. Well, all you have to do, Jim, is ask them the question if they're in bed at night and in their home, and some people come into the home to do harm to them. What are they going to do?
They're just going to sit there and, well, go ahead, do what you want. I'll give you what I want.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they're going to do, because if the guys are armed, the burglars are armed, what more? They come in my house, I'm going to kill them.
Oh, me too. My wife will, too. I mean, my wife used to be armed security guard, and she qualified for 560 out of a 600.
Yeah.
But,
I don't care if the police come after me for doing it. They're going down. Anybody comes in my house at night has had it.
Yeah. Well, another thing, you're talking about the pigs.
Yeah.
My uncle used to love to be called Pig. You know why?
Why?
He used to say, police, integrity, and guts. I thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly how he used
I
to
remember.
say it.
I remember those days. A lot of guys tried to get something good out of it. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now.
Yeah.
I used to tap a few people when they'd scream at me. What they did, though, they'd run up and grab what they call a badge snatch. They'd run up in the days and grab you run a shield or a star up here on your left side. They'd try to rip that off your shirt and scream pig in your face.
Yeah.
And that was really, I mean, this was what went on in the 60s at some of these riots.
Yeah.
So we taught them a few lessons and all that business about grabbing somebody's badge and spitting in your face. So, but we were called pigs in those days. Everybody was.
Yeah, I just started listening to your show. What was it, last week? Someone told me about it.
Oh, well, good.
Yes, I run Fresno to Fontana 5 nights a week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got a lot of trucker friends out there, and personal friends of mine drive truck, and I love to have you as a listener.
Yeah.
You know, when you got to think about this pig thing, Jim, and then, you know, it's just like we used to say when they'd come up and say, you pig, you know, and say, well, all I got to do is be a pig for 20 years. You're going to be a jerk your whole life.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, thanks for the call, bud.
Hey, thanks. Nice talking to you.
You drive safely out there, will you? That's Jim checking in from a big rig out going through Tulare there. Let's go up to Jack in Fresno. Jack, welcome to the show. Thanks for holding.
Hello, Jerry.
How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm okay.
Well, good.
Yeah. Well,
It's Friday night. It's Friday night, Jack.
Well, you have to be okay on Friday night.
Well, they slipped a Monday in on me today. I thought this was my Friday. Turned out to be a Monday.
Hey, Jerry, the kind of people that were pulling the badges off in the 60s were like the ones that occupy the White House.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, we. I've said this before on the show a number of times. All you have in the White House is an example of people that have aged from these long-haired pukes of the '60s.
Like
They've cut
Tom
their.
Hayden?
They've cut. That's right. They've cut their hair and put on some suits, but nothing's changed about the ideology they had. Now they don't like this country. They want to take advantage of the system. They've got these crazy ideas which are un-American.
Absolutely.
There's nothing in their heart about protecting our heritage and our culture. They want to change you. They want to control you. and they're absolutely worthless people. Now, anybody that tries to argue with me on this point, Bill Clinton is the most worthless individual on the planet.
No argument here, Jerry.
Well, I'm telling you, I mean, this guy is the biggest embarrassment to this country that's ever walked in that White House.
Oh, I agree.
I just don't understand what they see in that fella. The first day I saw him, he looked like a con artist to me, and he is. I mean, the guy is just a bum.
Jerry, would you believe I did not vote for him either time?
Well, none of us did, but somebody sure did,
Yeah.
because he's sitting up there riding around in that black limo, looking pretty good with his cigar.
Hey, Jerry, I wonder if Fresno PD will ever form a library book detail.
I think Chief Winchester's got bigger problems right now.
I think so. Hey, Jerry, one other thing.
Yes,
Bad
sir.
news.
What?
I heard Jim Beam joined AA. Jerry, I'll see you later.
Okay, my friend. That's Jack checking in from Fresno. If you want to be part of the show tonight, give us a call here, 252-1075, or toll free, 877-575-1075, on your AT&T cell phone, pound 1075, or on your GTE cell phone, it's star 1075. We lost Ed, did we? Or Ben, was it? Ben, we lost Ben. What are you handing me here, Jason? What is this? This is an important message, folks. I'm going to take a minute here.
Forget the message.
Just forget the message, he says.
Now, I want you to tell the folks...
Did you really write this?
Yeah, I did.
You can't spell.
Remember the story you told me about how you sold your badge?
Oh, yeah.
You could tell that story.
Well,
You could tell that.
Let's do that after the top of the hour, because that takes a little bit to...
I'll remind you.
These people are going to think I've done something illegal here. It had to do with out there on the road with my partner and I. We were busting narcotics suspects, and during that deal, I sold a badge, and I'll tell you that story when we come back from the top of the hour break. One thing I want to mention, the FBI did confirm the other day that there was an attempt to assassinate Johnny Chung. He's the witness in Chinagate, and the FBI has firmed that up, that there was an attempt to assassinate him, and they're working that up. So somebody wants to shut old Chung up now that he's talking. And one other thing I want to make mention, the author of the Chinese threat to nuclear bomb Los Angeles, believe it or not, is going to be asked to be a visitor by the White House here on January 24th. Go figure. I'm Jerry Pearce, Radio Detective. This is Squad Room Night. Open lines. We'll be right back.
The Radio Detective, brought to you by the California Correctional Peace Officers Association. They walk the toughest beat in the state.